Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. Sudhismriti purananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavat padam shankaram lokashankaram. So we found some of the arguments put forward by the Bharata school of Mimamsa. So just to recapitulate, first of all, the important point is Bhartas do not believe that there is such a thing as Brahman. And then Vedanta Vakyas do not denote Brahman. And then Upanishad mantras should be linked to Vidhi or Nishedha. That's major area of difference between Vrittigara Matam and Bharata school. Vrittigara accepts the possibility of interpreting Vedanta Vakyas as Upasana Vidhi, Upasana mantras, or Dhyana Vidhi. So, but Bhartas normally try to interpret Vedanta Vakyas as Arthavada, Stutya Arthavada or Dinda Arthavada. And then every Veda Vakya is either linked to a Vidhi Vakya or a Nisheda Vidhi or Vidhi Kriya Vidhi. And again, there are some areas where Bhartas will admit, but then that Vasana mantras should be linked to again to Kriya. In that case, the Vasana mantras or Vedanta Vakya should be considered to be subservient or Anga or Sesha of Utpatti Vidhi. That's the idea. So these are some of the points that you have to keep in mind. And then another very important point is, I mentioned here, this is a very significant quotation is given. Ekameva dvitiyam, that is one, and then tadetat brahma apurvam anaparam anantaram bhashyam. So this is a very important quotation, frequently referred to in other points, other places. Apurvam. Apurvam is something just no purvam, already mentioned. That means it has no karana. It is not a karya of anything. It has no purvam, no karana. Anaparam, it means it has, there is nothing. It has no param. I mean, it has no karyam. It is not a karana of anything. It is not a karya of anything. It is apurva because it has no karana. It is anaparam because it has no karya. And then Brahman is neither karana or karya. Anantaram. Anantaram means remaining the same, ekasubhava. No antaram. That means something one after another, like that. It's ekasubhava. Abhahya means advitiyam. There is nothing outside of it. That's the important point to be kept in mind. And then just one more to prepare the background, that's all. So there are certain upasanas mentioned here. Aham Kritopasana, that is Aham Brahmasmi Mahavakya. So Aham Brahmasmi Dhyanam, that's what Vrittigara Mata, when they say. So if you perform this dhyana, then you will get the result. All the obstacles will disappear, and then you get Devata Prapti according to Bharata, when you consider yourself to be the Yajamana or Brahma is Devata and Asmi Devata Prapti. Otherwise, you get your expected result through Upasana, which helps you to remove obstacles. So just a recapitulation. Now we'll go to the main Bhashyam. Now after this, I think the next paragraph in this book is Atra apare pratyavadisthande. That's the next one. Atra apare pratyavadisthande. Here Purva Bhaksha, this is a Vrittigara Bhaksha. It begins with this question. Bodhayana Vritti. Bodhayana Vritti. Sometimes, according to some scholars, Upavarsha. The works are not available in printed form. But anyway, their views are being referred to, and there is a claim that Ramanuja went to Kashmir, he got a Bodhayana Vritti, and based on that he wrote Sri Bhashyam. So that's why one of the references here. Atra abare pratyavadishthandi yaddevi shastra pramanagam brahma tathapi pratipatti vidhi vishayataya eva shastrena brahma samarpyate. But suppose you argue or you accept that Brahma has got Shastra Pramanyam, even then it should be interpreted as Upasana. Pratipatti here means Upasana. So Pratipatti Vidhi is not an elaborate procedure, but it's also, it helps you to reach the goal. It is secondary to Utpatti Vidhi, the main Vidhi. So I referred to it earlier this morning session. So Pratipatti Vishayataya Eva Shastrena Brahma Samarpyate. So, this Upasana, that is Dhyana, that is indicated by Pratipatti Vidhi. So, there are different Upasana, Dhyana forms referred to in Vedanta scriptures, especially in Purva Bhakshins. Now, there is a great difference between what it implies here. Actually, Jiva is not Brahman, but you assume Jiva is Brahman, Atmanam Brahmeti Vasida. This is Vrittikara. So Vrittikara's view is that Jiva is not Brahman, but you assume that Jiva is Brahman. They all belong to the same category with minor differences. Sambadrupam, Adhyasarupam and Samskarupam, etc. But in Siddhanta, according to Advaita, actually Jiva is Brahman itself. Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. So, and the Sudhivakyas are only revealing that fact. The reminding, Sodavyo, Mandavyo, Nididhyasiddhavyaka. So the same statement can be interpreted by Prattigara as an injunction for Upasana, Dhyana, etc. That is very important. According to Prattigara, you should meditate Jiva as Brahman, then you get result. In that case, Aropya is bigger than what is on the object in which it is superimposed. So if you meditate yourself as Brahman, then you get some higher spiritual experiences, because you are expanding your own dimension through dhyana, through introspection. But Advaitins say no, Jiva is Brahman itself. So it is not something upasya in that sense. Now there are some examples taken from ritualistic tradition. That is, Yatha Yupahavaniyadini Alaukikani Vidhi Sheshataya Shastrayana Samapyande Tadvat. An example is given. So, I shall try to explain this. You know what is this Yupa? So, Yupa is a wooden post which is ceremoniously brought and installed in the Yagashala, and that is used for tying the goat that is to be tied, so that it works like a post to which this Yajna Pashu, the sacrificial animal, is tied. So that is what is called Yupa. Now I have to remember, when we go further, you will know, as you happen to study Mahamadi and others, different schools of Vedanta have got different views on this. According to Bhamatikara, he will say Atrapare Acharya Deshiya. There are some new teachers, they will say. So there are different opinions about this. So I shall try to explain this in the light of this Vedantic statement here. Okay, now coming to the subject. Yupam yakshati. This statement in the scriptures. Now, yupam takshati. Remember, takshati means just you chisel, you make it smooth. That yupa, that wooden post. Yupam takshati. Now there is no way to understand what is yupa by itself, because you have to remember there was no dictionary at that time to expound this. So from that, they understand yupam ashtashi karoti. So that yupa, its face should be cut and chiseled and should be properly prepared with 8 faces. The yupe pasum vidhnati. So when you put all this together, then only from Vedic statements you get an idea as to what yupa signifies. So yupam takshadi doesn't make any sense. So yupam ashtashi karoti, that will give an idea. Well, it has to be something about it. But yupe pasum vidhnati. From that, you will understand that this yupa means a post. Now you have to put all these vakyas together. One vakya alone will not give correct meaning. To derive the right meaning, you have to put all these vakyas together. That yad ahavaniye juhvati. Now what is Ahavaniya? Ahavaniya, now we know Ahavaniya Agni is the Agni that you light from the Ahavati Agni, which is preserved in a home, which again the same flame that is preserved from the Yagan Yaga Agni. And from that you flame a new one, then that becomes Ahavaniya Agni for the Yajna or Yaga that you are performing today in the 21st century. That the flame goes back to maybe thousands of years. Now again, what is this Ahavaniya? For that you should know Vasante Brahmano Agnin Adatida. From this you get what is Ahavaniya. So there are no pramanas that reveal Yupa, Ahavaniya, etc. For that you should get all these together. That is why certain vidhis should be taken as anga and should be interpreted in connection with some main vidhi which includes a kriya, and then you understand what the particular Vedic statement actually implies. So vidhivakya is not enough. Anga also, it is subsidiary vidhivakyas also should be put together, then only you get a correct meaning. This is the view of Mimamsakas. So, yatha yupa ahavaniya dini alokikani vidhisheshadaya samapyante. Now, alokika means, alokika in the sense it is not, the information regarding yupa or ahavaniya are not available from secular books, from any other sources. So you have to understand all this in connection. So frequently, there are big different views, different debates as to what should be done first, what is anga, what is angi, all this supposedly in many Mimamsa vakyarthas. It's not within our scope. Shastrena samapindi. Tadud kutaha. pravatti nivritti prayojanat shastrasya. Shastra has got either the benefit of teaching you what you should do, pravritti, or informing you what you should not do, nivritti, vidhi and pratishedha. Everything else should be, according to Mimamsaka, should be arthavada. And according to Vrittikara, it should be manasi kriya, means dhyana or upasana. That also is true for Vedanta Vakyas, which are related to Brahmajnanam, which obviously do not contain any piti injunction. In other words, for Advaitins, Siddhantins, Upanishad Vakyas are only bodhagatva, means inform you about a truth that already exists. This is an important point. There are a few things to be kept in mind which is very relevant to get a correct understanding. For example, in the Upasana discussion, Upasana Kanda, when Purvapakshins are talking about certain things, they may use the word jnanam. They are not talking about Brahmajnanam, they are talking about Upasana or Dhyana. So, because Purvapakshins don't understand, they don't take Brahmajnanam as Advaitins understand it. Right now you can see the example, not immediate line, but a few lines later you can see Evam Amrutatva Kamasya Brahmajnanam Vidhiyati Idi Yuktam. You can use the end of one line. Evam, I'm going to discuss it later, but to give an example. Evam Amrutatva Kamasya means Moksha Kamasya. The previous statement is Saticha Vidhivaritve Yatha Surgadi Kamasya Agnihotradi Sadhanam Vidhiyate. Because these statements now being established that they are Vidhivaritve means the main Tatparya is Vidhi. The main focus is Vidhi. Saticha Vidhivaritve, that means Karmaganda, that is according to Karmaganda. Vidhivarati. Yatha Surgadi Kamasya Agnihotradi Sadhanam Vidhiyati. So Surgagamo Yajeda, etc. Agnihotra already sir recommended, and they are given the recommended, they are prescribed for Surgati, for normal people who Mimamsakas who want to go to Surga, who want Surga Prapti, etc. For them, Agnihotradi Sadhanam. Sadhana means tool, means for attaining Surga Prapti. Vidhiyati evam Amrutatva Kamasya. I mean those who are seeking moksha or Amrutatvam, Brahmajnanam Vidhiyate iti yuktam. Here not Brahmajnanam of Advaita, but is Brahma Dhyanam or Upasana is meant. Okay, so that should be understood. Otherwise, Brahmajnanam, the same Brahmajnanam we apply everywhere, then Vedanta will take Sishasana upside down. This is very important. That's why this should be studied with commentaries or from somebody who has read the commentaries. Otherwise, this meaning will not become obvious. So, how do we interpret this? Somebody may ask the question from purely linguistic point of view. The same word, dictionary meaning is not to be taken as the only means for understanding. The Vedic or Vedantic hermeneutics demand that you have to follow the rules of Vedantic hermeneutics, which is again different from Vedic hermeneutics. I mentioned earlier, in Vedic hermeneutics, it is pre-Paninian language. So I mentioned, Sarvesham Dhadunam, Sarvesham Shabdanam Dhadujatum, Dhadunam Anegarthatum. So every Shabda originates from a Dhatu, and every Dhatu can have any number of implications and meanings depending upon the context and also the person who uses it. That is Prakarana Vaividhyat, pravaktu vaididhya, depending upon the person, pravakta, the one who is using, and also the one, and the context in which is used. Mostly in the context of Mimamsa, the same mantra, same word for a hoda will have one implication sometimes. For an Udgada, represent Samaveda is another meaning, Adharyu, Yajurveda another meaning, and Brahman, Atharveda another meaning. That also is possible, and also different context. So the great commentator, that is Durgacharya, written commentary on Niruttam, Yaska's Niruttam, he says just like a person who is traveling on horseback. So but the quality of horse depends upon Arudasya. This is a long description. Depending upon the quality of the horse rider is the deciding factor, not horse itself. Anyway, this is not within our scope, so I won't extend this discussion, maybe later. So this is an important point, remember, the Vedantic hermeneutics. A word like Jnanam or Brahma Jnanam, when used in the Purvapaksha argument, Purvapaksha context, or in Karma Kanda, Upasana Kanda, should be taken to mean Dhyana or Upasana, and not Brahma Jnanam as normally understood in Vedantic scriptures. This is a very important point, remember. Tadvat kuta edat pravritti nivritti prayojanatva shastrasya. Going back to the previous sentence we began. So here is Siddhanti has got a doubt. So remember this, up to this samarpyande tadvat, full stop. Udayana rupa, maybe he is talking about Brahma Dhyanam or Brahma Upasana, etc. And then he says, Kuda edat, this is Siddhanti Samshaya. And Dan Smritikara's answer is Pravritti Nivritti Prayojanatva Shastrasya. Pravritti Nivritti means Shastra or Veda Vakyas either ask you to do something, Chodana Lakshanathu, Chodana Lakshana. Otherwise, it should be meant to make you desist from doing something. You have to avoid doing pradishiddha karmas, and you should do what is in the proper injunctions, that is according to Viti. No, again, tathahi shastra tatparya vidaha ahu. So shastra tatparya vidaha means ki Shabara Bhashya is referred here. Dushtohi tasyartha karma avabodhanam iti. This is from Shabara Bhashya. Is quoted. Dushtohi tasyartha karma avabodhanam. Means to make you understand avabodhanam, the actual implication of karma. That's the purpose of shastra. Shastra artha. This means Vaidya Shabdas Artha. Iti Chodanedi Kriyayaha Pravartakam Vajanam. This also from Shabara. Kriyayaha, what is Chodana? So Chodana Lakshana Dharma eventually says, what is Chodana? Kriyayaha Pravartakam Vajanam. So a Vajana or a statement that prompts a person, that will prompt you to perform a kriya, a karma. Kriya always means this way, Yajamana, a karta, a bhokta, you should do sankalpa, you should utter mantras which proclaim, but the actual purpose for which you are performing that kriya, and what are you? You have to mention your parents' name, as very often, in many of the puja traditions, Homa traditions in our own times, they still retain some of the old habits. You have to, in the Sankalpa Mantra, you have to mention who you are, where are you from, and for what purpose you are doing this sankalpa. So which always which proclaims who is the karta and what's the purpose of this performance of the yajna, yaga, etc. Many of these characteristics have already existed and survived in our puja traditions and other traditions, in different kinds of traditions. So that is why kriyayaha pravartakam vachanam. The karta should be there, kriya should be there, and also you should mention the time, space, desha, kala, all should be mentioned while doing this. Tasya jnanam upadesha. Tasya means karmanaha jnanam upadesha. So, to give you a proper understanding of this karma. So that's the actual purpose, Shastra Tatparya Vidaha. Means Shabara here. That's what they say. It also includes Jaimini also. Jaimini is the original Sutrahara. Shabara is Bhashyakara. The Jaimini Sutra is referred here 115 in this book. Tasya Jnana Upadesha. Tadbhudanam Kriyarthatvena Samamnayaha. So Tadbhudanam. So here Bhuda here means Siddhavastu, means mostly things which are used, which are connected, which are part of performance, the Dravya, ghee, all those Purodash, all those things are implied here. Tad Bhudanam, that is in that Veda, in this Yajna, in the Karma, there are different things necessary. That is implied by Tad Bhudanam Kriyarthatvena Samamnayaha. See, for example, if there are a few things you have to collect for this performance of Yajna and Yaga, all those things are, what are they for? They are meant to help you to perform the Yaga and Yajna. They have some connection with the Kriya. Like that, Dhyana, Upasana also are in secondary aspects of this Kriya. That's the idea behind. Amnayasya Kriyarthatvad Anarthayam Adarthanam. It's again repeated here. So in Jaimini Sutra, repeated here. So that's why it's Kriyarthatvena Samamnayaha. It means they should be interpreted along with or in connection with Vidhivakyas or Kriya Vakyas or Kriya Vidhivakyas. That's the meaning of Kriyarthatvena Samamnayaha. Samucharana Samamanaya, I mean properly stated. So all these ingredients which are necessary for performing yajnas and yagas, they are all different aspects of kriyarthas. They are connected, there is a sambandha with these kriya vakyas because they are used for performing the kriyas which are mentioned, which are recommended as injunctions in this Abhinaya, I mean Dharma Shastra or Karma Kanda, Karma Shastra, Jaimini Sutra and so on. Iti Ataka Purusham Kojit Vishaya Visheshe Pravartayat Kudaschit Vishaya Vishesha Nivartayat Cha Arthavat Shastram. So Shastram or Veda becomes Arthavat. Purusham Kojit sometimes Vishaya Visheshe means Yaga, Yajna, etc. For this Yajnas and Yagas, Pravartayat will prompt you to, will incent you, will teach you, instruct you to engage in these kriyas. Kojit Vishaya Visheshe means Yaga, Yajna, etc. Pravartayat Kudaschit Vishaya Visheshad Nivartayat Surapanam or Himsa, Kalanja Bhakshanam. These are all Pradishidha. So the Shastras, Vedas will help you to keep away from those things and also will help you to engage, to perform yajnas and yagas according to vidhi, and also will help you to prevent performing pradishiddha karmas. That's the idea behind. And then only Shastram becomes arthavat. So the meaningfulness, relevance, significance, actual implication of Shastra is because Shastra sometimes could Vishya Visheshe Pravartayat and Vishya Vishesha Nivartayat. That's the idea behind. Taseshadaya cha anyat upayuktam. Tasesha means as secondary detail, Sesha or Anga. So all other mantras like Vedanta Vakyas which Advaitins are talking about, all should be Anyat, here means Vedanta Vakyas, should be properly understood or interpreted Taseshutaya. I mean, Shesha of all these Kriya Vakyas. I mean, they are meaningful to the extent that they have a significance in the context of the Kriya Vakya, not otherwise. Tas samanya vedantanam api tathaiva arthavatvam siyat. Tas samanya means similar. This is what we are talking about so far is karma kanda, vidhi vakya, pradishuddha vakyas, etc. And Vedanta also, Uttara Mimamsa also is similar to that, the Samanyat. It is similar to Karmakanda. So Vedantanam api, the Vedanta Vakyas also, Tathaiva Arthavatvam Siyat. That's how Vedanta Vakyas become meaningful or relevant. Sadicha vidhi veratve yatha sargadikamasya agnihotradi sadhanam vidhiyadi evam amruttagamasya brahmajnanam vidhiyadi idi yuktam. It's already explained earlier. So vidhi veratve, so everything is vidhi vera. Uttara Mimamsa, Vedanta, all vidhi vera. Mean vidhi is the main tattvarya. Therefore, yatha sargadikamasya agnihotradi sadhanam vidhiyadi. In the Karmakanda, Agnihotradi karmas and yagas and yajnas are prescribed for those who want to go to Swarga. Similarly, Amrutattagama, Amrita means moksha. Those who want to perform moksha, for them Brahmajnana means Brahma Upasana, Brahma Dhyanam. Vidhiyati idi yuktam. It's an important point, remember. Maybe a few things in this connection need some explanation with the commentaries. So, according to Kumarila Bhatta, who is the main figure, who is the one who actually laid the Mimamsa on a strong foundation, he has some very, very important, very strong statements. For example, Pravrittirva, Nivrittirva, Nityena Kritagena va. Pumsam yena buddhisyeda tat shastram abhijiyati. What is shastram? So, Sabara, Kumarila already belong to same tradition, continuous Mimamsa heritage. Pravartirva, what is permitted, what is prescribed, injunction, by injunction. Nivrittiva, what is prohibited through injunction. Nitya means Sruti. Kritagena means Smriti. Nitya means our Rishaya, Vedas, and Kritaga means, Smriti, Dharma Shastras written by human beings. Pumsam yena upadishyeda, the Shastram abhidiyati. Whether it is Sudhi or Smriti, whatever it is, whatever teaches a human being what you should do and what you should never do, that alone can be called Shastra. And therefore, the prameyam, the topic of discussion of such a Shastra, can never be Brahman. Because if Brahma becomes the topic of discussion, and if that is taken seriously as the main topic, then in the next sentence it comes, You can find Anuiha Jijnasa Vailakshanyam Uktam, etc. There is a reference to that. Anyway, it comes a little later. For example, Syadevam Yati Rajjusurupa Sravane Iva Sapabhrandi Samsarita Bhrandi Brahma Surupa Sravanamatreiva Nivarteda Nadu Nivartate Sudha Brahmanopi Yadhapurum Sukadukadi Samsari Dharma Darshanad Swadavya Mandavya Nidashivya. It's an argument coming from Purva-Pakshi. Actually, Purva-Pakshi, within Purva-Paksha reasons, it's called. They argue. Well, in Vedanta, when you are told that this is not Sarpa, it is Rajju, Sarpa Bhranti is immediately gone. But we are told you Tattwamasi, it doesn't happen. So what does it mean? It means you should do Soda Sravana Manana Nididhyasana. So that is the argument of this Purva-Pakshin group. Remember the Ekadesi, the number of fringe groups. Vedantics also included, and also Bhaktigaras and other fringe groups, those who can be categorized within this kind of bracket between Kumarila and Shankaracharya. 2nd century or 3rd century AD up to 8th century AD. Between this, during this time, a number of other scholars came who gave multiple types of interpretations to Vedanta. So this is an important point here. So that's also the argument of Kumarila Bhatta. So if you are told this is rope, not snake, the fear is gone. But Prabhajya dharmas do not disappear like that. So you have to do something even after that. That's the argument of the Jnana Karma Samuchayavadins. Okay, so we'll come to that later. Okay. Now, here also there is a Purva-Paksha within Purva-Paksha. This Purva-Paksha is putting this question to Vrittigaya. Nanu iha Jijnasya Vailakshanyam Uktam Karmakande Bhavyo Dharmo Jijnasya iha tu Bhudam Nitya Nivrittam Brahma Jijnasyam iti Tatra Dharma Jnana Phala Anushtana Apeksha Vilakshanam Brahma Jnana Phalam Bhavitum Arkati. So against this, the Siddhantin part of Purva-Paksha will answer. So this argument is coming, it's a kind of discussion among non-Advaitis. So one group is perhaps discussing with the main Purva-Paksha, Purva-Mimamsaka, or maybe with the Vrittigaya group. Is arguing, apparently it may look like an argument coming from Advaita. It's not Advaita. It's an argument between them. So in this context, there is a difference, Vailakshanyam. What's the Vailakshanyam? What the Jijnasyam from Karma Kanda is Dharma, and that is Apurva, Punya, Bhavya. It is something which should come into existence. It doesn't exist at the time of Jijnasa. So the point is, Jijnasyam is used. So we can say it doesn't exist when you begin Jijnasa. It has yet to come into existence. What? Adrishtam. With the result of Yagas, Yajnas, etc. Punya, etc. Ihatu, but in Vedanta, Bhudam Nitya Nivrittam Brahma Jijnasyam iti. Here, Brahma is Nitya Nivrittam. It is Kriyashunyam. Bhudam he means Nitya Siddham. Nitya Vastu. That is Bhudam. So Ihatu Bhudam Nitya Nivrittam. Nitya Nivrittam means Purnadaya Kriyashunyam. That's the idea behind. Brahma Jijnasyam iti. Tatra Dharma Jnana Phala Anushtana Apeksha Vilakshanam Brahma Jnana Phalam Bhavitum Arkati. So Dharma Jnana Phala. What is Dharma Jnana Phala? Dharma Jnana Phala is is adrishtam, apurvam, punya, sukha, prapti, etc. And that is the product of activity, karma, anusthana. Brahmajnanam is not the result of any activity. So this main distinction is there. First of all, jnasya is different, phala is different. Jnasya vailakshanya muktam. Phala is different, jnasyam is different. Therefore, there is, that's why phala anusthana, apeksha, vilakshanam. It is something distinct from something, from anything that depends upon anusthana. So there is no need of anusthana for Brahmajnanam, this idea behind. Now, within Purvapaksha there is Siddhanta. This is the Bhuttigara's view as he answers the Purvapaksha of his own camp. Narhati evam bhavidam. No, it's not like that. This is not a very logical argument. Karyavidhi prayuktasya brahmanaha pratibhadyamanatvad. So, what is discussed in Vedanta is Brahman, which is connected to Karyavidhi, Kriyavidhi. And example is given Atma va are dashtavyya, sodavya, nididasya, etc. So we pratyaya always indicates you should do something. Your duty, your obligation is obligatory. Again, ya atma, apagatavatma, then saha anveshtavyaha, sabhijnansidavyaha, etc. Atma ityuva vasida, etc. Atmanam eva lokam upasida, Brahma veda, Brahmaiva bhavati. So all these are interpreted by Vrittigara Madam to defend their view that Upasana is the implied meaning of Vedanta Vakyas or Dhyana, that's all. Now we have to read some of the commentary books based on this, so just a few. So of course this is an important discussion later, mantra comes, but maybe later. Here, Taittiriya, this quotation here, Brahmavid apnodi param is Vakya. Now, in the Surga, which is mentioned in the Karma Kanda, it is obvious, it is something that everyone knows about. Not physically, but the concept of Sarga, what you are going to enjoy there, what you are going to experience there is well known. It's already described in so many books. But what it is like to become a Brahmajnani or to become one with Brahman, Brahmavid apnodi param, param apnodi, or Brahmaiva bhavati, that is not prasiddha. So that main distinction is there. So that's why karma phala is totally different from moksha, or moksha is totally different from karma phala. So that is an important point made here. That is, nanu jijnasa vailakshanya muktam karma kande bhavyaha dharmaha jijnasya. Iha means Vedanta Vakyeshu. Iha tu bhudam nitya nivrittam brahma jijnasyam idi tatra dharma jnana phala anusthana apeksha vilakshanam. Brahma jnana is totally different, etc. So already mentioned here. Now coming to that. Ityadi vidhaneshu satsu koso atma kim tad brahma idi agamkshayam tasvarupa samarpanena sarve vedanta upayuktaha. Nitya sarvajna sarvagato nitya trupto nitya shuddha buddha mukta svabhavo vijnanam anandam brahma ityeva deha. So yad upasana cha shastra drishtaha adrishtaha moksha phalam bhavishyati. So what is moksha and how this happens for Vedantins according to Vedanta Vakya? Again, this is an interpretation of Purvapaksha, Pirtigara. He says, what is the purpose of all these Vedanta Vakyas? Atmavari, Antavya, Dashtavya, Sodavya, and then Suha Nishtavya, Vijnasitavya. and Atmetyuva Uvasida, Atmanameva Lokam Uvasida, Brahmaveda Brahmeva Bhavati, Ityadi Vidhaneshu. In all these Vidhivakyas, again they consider as Vidhivakyas. It's not a Vidhivakya, but for them it's Vidhivakya because there is the injunction for Upasana, Upasida, and Vijijnasavya means you should know by Upasana, meditation. Dashtavyaha, Sodavyaha, these are all different Upasanas. So, what is the nature of this Atma which is being prescribed in connection with different Upasanas? Tad Brahma, Idi Agamsha, Vishasi question will arise. Then Tasarupam Samarpanena, Sarve Vedanta Upayuktaha. To explain the Surupa, the true nature of that Brahman, all these Vedanta Vakyas are to be interpreted. They are meant for expounding, describing that Brahman, that Atma. And that other Brahman, Atma, is Nitya Sarvajna Sarvagata Nitya Tattva Nitya Siddha Mukta Subhava etc. Vijnanamananda Brahma Iteva Deha Tadupasanacha. So after listening to all this, you should do perform Upasana. And then what happens? Shastra Dushtaha. So what is already prescribed in the Shastra? And Adhushtaha. What is not prescribed in the Shastra? Adhushtaha means Atindriya. Moksha Phalam Bhavishyati. So you will get Drishta and you get Adhushta. What are explained in the Shastras that you attain, and what is prescribed in the Shastras that you will get later, maybe after death, next life, Swarga Prapti, the Atindriya Phala, Adhushta, that also you are going to get. That is Moksha. This is the Vrittigara interpretation. Kartavya Vidya Ananupraveshe. Now, suppose Vijnanamanandam Brahma, all these statements are there. If we don't interpret these Vakyas as Upasana, along with this Kartavya Vidhi, which contain Upasida, etc., Sodavya, etc., if we do not do Anvaya like this, Kartavya Vidhi, Ananupraveshe, Vastumatra Gathani. If you just make a statement, Tattvamasi Aham Brahmasmi, Vijnanamanandam Brahma, etc., Vastu Kathana. Then what happens? Hanubadana Asambhavad. The old argument of Bhattas. They will say nothing to be given up, not tyajya, not svigartavya, there is nothing to be given up, nothing to be accepted. Hana, Ubadana, Asambhavad. What happens? Saptadipa Vasumati. You know, all this. This is just statement, it doesn't have any meaning. Earth consists of 7 islands. 7 islands, that's all. This statement. Raja so gicchati, king is going. Ityadi Vakyavat Vedanta Vakyanam Anarthakyam Eva Siyad. This is for the time being, the Purvaksham concludes. So, everything will be Anarthaga, Nirarthaga. Well, like king is going, that consists of 7 islands like that. So, against this, again, a Purvakshi within Vrittigara's school, Vrittigara circle, says, Nanu Vastumatra Gathane pi api Rejuriyam Nayam Sarpa ityadu Bhranti Janita Bhidi Nivartanena Arthavatum Drishtam. So, Vastu Gathana Vakyas, like for example, Raja Sogichadi, Saptadiva, Mesuvadi, etc. Vijnanamanandam Brahma, etc. Because these are different examples. But Vedanta Vakyas meant, Vedantics mean by Vedanta Vakyas, Mahavakyas mostly. Tattwamasi Aham Brahmasmi, etc. This meaning here. Not Saptadiva, Vasumati. They are actually Vrittigaras, or they are trying to make fun, mocking at Vedanta Vakyas. Aham Brahmasmi is like saying Saptadiva Vasumati. Tattwamasi is like saying that like Rajaso Gachati, etc. Just a statement. Vastu Matra Kathanam. So here, an argument within an argument which opposes Vrittigara Matam, within the Vrittigara range, their own circle, he is making a counterpoint, that is, Nanu Vastu Matra Kathane api. Even if you make a Vastu Matra Kathana statement, for example, Lejuriyam Nayam Sarpa. This is a rope, it's not a snake, it's Vastu Matra Kathanam. Ityadu Bhrandi Janida Bhidi Nivartanena. The fear that is created by the wrong impression that it is a snake, maybe a cobra, without understanding is it a Jew. It creates fear and all these Bhrandi, wrong notions. Nivartanena, they will go away, they will disappear. You immediately understand, oh, it is a Jew, not Sarpa. No, you are no more scared. You don't fear anything. Arthavatam drishtam. So it has got a meaning, significance. Why? Because you immediately you feel free from the fear of Sarpa. Tatha ihabi samsari atmavastu kathani samsari asamsari atmavastu kathani. Yeah. There is a wrong mistake here. Agraha is gone. It's not. Tatha ihapi asamsari atmavastu kathani. You are told, you are Tattwamasi, you are asamsari, you are Atman. Asamsari atma vastu kathanena, samsarittu bhranti nivartanena, arthavattum syat. So what happens, samsarittu bhranti? That means samsarittu means this sharira atma buddhi, janana, marana, etc. Means it includes sadvikaras or mostly mental sadvikaras. I mean birth, existence, growth, evolution, decay, death, and again rebirth. This is samsara. That fear is gone. The moment you are told you are asamsari, not a samsari. To correct this spelling mistake in this text, no old book, no. Okay, so samsarit bhranti nivartanena arthavattum syat. This is a argument, as I mentioned, from Vrittigara circle. Now, Siddhanta Paksha within Vrittigara circle, that is the real Vrittigara Matam, says, not Advaita, syat edadevam yadi rejju swarupa sravane iva saprabhranti samsarita bhranti brahma swarupa sravana matrena nivarteda. That being true, you're correct, that is true. I mean, if when you are told that you are Tattwamasi, you are Brahman, when you hear this, if this fear goes away, samsarita bhranti, everything goes away, then what you said would have been correct. But it doesn't happen. Nanu nivartade. Shuddha brahmanopi yatha purvam sukha dukkhanti samsari dharma darshanat. Shuddha brahmana means those who have heard about Brahma Jnanam, the lot of Sravana done, Aham Brahmasmi, every day you chant, you vasana, we call it Sravanavati. According to Bhamadi school, Apediksha, there's many others, Parimala, called Parimala Paddhati, where you, this is part of sadhana. You get Sravana. Again, this is applicable to those who have not attained 100% sadhana, Chatushtaya Sampatti. Such people, what they should do? They should, every day they should parayana, which is Sravana. Sravana means one should again and again reconnect with that idea, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattwamasi, etc., which is allowed in Vivarana Prasthana also, not only Bhamati. Because if you have 100% fully established in sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the Sravana is enough. So, that is Sabda Avaroksha, Anubhuti Sabda Avaroksha. But if you are not 100% established in sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, then Sravana, Marana, Nididhyasana will help you to get fully established in sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, then what happens is, whatever you are doing Sravana every day, as Sravanavarti, that becomes an experience. So, when you heard for the first time, it may not become an experience, but it becomes more and more of an experience, or you slowly approach the highest Jiva Brahmaikyam as you continue doing Sravanavarti, Abhyasa. That is perfectly okay. Then what happens? It will be totally different from what you heard for the first time. It becomes an actual experience. Because already the wheel, that apana already the covering wheel, the curtain will disappear and everything becomes obvious. But that is not the upasana as mentioned by Urtigara here. That is not upasana. That is just every day reminding, every day reciting Aham Brahmasmi mantra, etc. So that's why he says, Sudha Brahmanopi, Yatha Purvam Sukha Dukkhadi Samsari Dharma Darshanad. Even after getting Sravana, also you find people continue to be in samsara. They continue to experience Sukha Dukkha, all the samsari dharma. That's what we find. So Srodavyo, Mandavyo, Nididhyasdavyaha, Idi cha Sarvanottrakalayohu, Manana Nididhyasanayohu, Vididarshanat. So again, Srodavyo, Mandavyo, Nididhyasdavyaha. This again and again, statement is used again and again, either to emphasize the need for upasana, dhyana, by Vrittigara, or as some kind of a kriya vidhi, some kind of an anga of a main kriya, utpatti vidhi, according to bhattas or mimamsakas. Tasmat pratipatti vidhi vishayadaya eva shastra pramanagam brahma abhivagantavyam iti. Therefore, pratipatti, I said pratipatti vidhi means authoritative step-by-step process. That is pratipatti. It's called dhyana also can be. Now Advaitin begins his argument. One by one he demolishes all these views. Atra vidiyati na karma brahma vidya phalayohu vailakshinya. What is vailakshinyam? Different and distinction. But we have to say in this context is this. Karma phala and brahma vidya phala, they are totally different. So that is one important argument here. 1 minute. Some of the commentaries can be referred to. That will be helpful. So the different commentators will tell you, Tindagaras will tell you, same thing. That is, Atmajnana phalam is nitya, it is swabhavika, it is asariradaya siddham, etc. It is not something that comes as a result of pravarti or activity. It is not like purva, it is already there. Whatever you are, that you are reminded of. So again, this all we have already discussed earlier. There is nothing new in this, so there is no need to refer to it now. Now, na karma brahma vidya phalayoga vailakshanyat. Shariram vachigam manasam karma sudis mudisiddham dharmakhyam. So what is this dharma? It is any kind of work done by deha, by vak, and also mana. And this has already been established in different sudis and smridis. Sudis mudisiddham dharmakhyam. Yad vishaya jiknyasa adhado dharma jiknyasa, the Jaimini, idi sutrida atharmopi himsadi pradishedha chodana lakshana jiknyasya pariharaya. That's the first point. That's why very important, many which are not always understood. Athado dharma jijnasa also implies athado adharma jijnasa. So we should know dharma to practice, to perform dharma. We should also know adharma to avoid, to prevent ourselves from performing any pratisiddha karmas. That's the idea behind. Athado dharma jijnasa iti sutra, Jaimini Sutra. Adharmo api himsa adi surapanam kalanja bhakshanam himsa etc. Himsa adi pradisheda chodana lakshanat jijnasya pariharaya, to avoid it. Or by mistake, if we are done, to make amends, so maybe to as a penance, to get out of the the negative consequences of wrong action done unconsciously, we should know what is adharma. That's the idea here. Tayos chodana lakshanayohu arthanarthayohu dharmadharmayohu phale pratyakshe sukadukhe sarira vangmanobhireva papujyamani Vishendriya samyoga janye brahmandishu sthaviranteshu prasiddhi. So the point is, it is important that we should also know adharma just as we know dharma. Because when we connect ourselves with different vishayas, what happens is, if we don't stick to dharma, it can lead to a descent in our evolution. If you stick to adharma, when we perform adharma, it can lead to a descent in our evolution. We will be born in the different other lower levels of existence. If we perform dharma, we will have an ascent in our evolution. That's the idea behind. Sukadukhe sharirvangmano vireva govjimane vishendriya samyoga jajne brahmadishu sthavirandeshu. Sthaviranda means vrikshaladadaya, means trees and mountains and valleys. Or we may, if you do a lot of punya karmas, then what happens? We may be born in higher regions, higher realms of devas, brahma, etc. Prasiddhi. Manishitadarabhya brahmandeshu dehavatsu sukhadaradamyam anusuyati. Sukhadaradamya says, that is Ananda Mimamsa is referred to here, is well known in Taittiriya Upanishad. Just as beginning with the human dimension, human level, Manishitadarabhya brahmandeshu dehavatsu. Those who are embodied beings, who have got a physical body, who identify themselves with the physical body. This Tayaradamya, that is Dharma Tayaradamya, will be the Adhikari Tayaradamya also. Fitness in terms of Dharma, our own performance of Dharma, and fitness in terms of our own fitness, our own Adhikaritum, what we are Adhikari for. These differences, distinctions, we always find in this world in performance of dharma. Tadascha tathedoho dharmasi daradamyam gamyati. Dharma daradamya, adhikari daradamyam, prasiddham, etc. Now this is, remember where are we going to now? The idea is, any kind of dharma activity, yaugika or vaidya karmas, there is always some degree of diversity and difference with regard to what we attain, with regard to how we evolve, how we make progress, or we go down in the ladder of evolution. This doesn't exist in Brahmajnana. That's the idea behind it. So we are coming to that. The Dharma Tayaradamyam and the Adhikari Tayaradamyam, it exists at the realm of Karmakanda. All people are not fit for the highest performance of rituals. There's always, I mentioned this earlier. I have to say a few things regarding this, Before Shankaracharya, and this should be understood as you go further. Before Shankaracharya, as I mentioned earlier, Vedadhikara was limited to a small, tiny fraction of Hindu society. how small it was, mean not even 1%, much less than 1%. Now, and even among them, there were Taradamya. As you mentioned, Dharma Taradamya and Adhikari Taradamya. Some people are highly evolved, some people are very low. All this were there. Any kind of ritualistic activities, there will be always difference. And also the result, and also spiritual evolution. It's going to have, we will discuss tomorrow. Some highly evolved people will have Uttarayana Marga, and others will have Dakshinayana Marga. See, Datta Sadhane Dhumadi Kramena Dakshinena Pathagamanam etc. Tatrabi Suhadaradamyam etc. So that is very after a few more sentences it comes. So Taradamya more and less, or more or less. Some highly evolved, some much less evolved. This always will be there at the level of the realm of karma. But in Brahmajnana, no. Once you realize, after attaining, after getting established in sadhana, chatushta sambhati, when you get Brahmajnanam, then you are the same. There is no distinction. So you can imagine from what a very primitive level of Vedic philosophy, Shankaracharya retrieved the essence of Vedic culture by bringing this Vedanta. Even in modern times, if you talk in terms of social justice, democracy, or egalitarianism, equality, you can find Shankaracharya's was a very revolutionary work. I mentioned this earlier. In modern time, when you live in the West, you understand this. People who, when they read Advaita, they're finding something in Advaita which they don't find in any of the Abrahamic religions. They may continue going to their own different churches and places of worship, but they understand that what they are finding in their own small little denominations is not the highest form of spirituality and religion. Once they understand a little bit of Advaita. And who was the one who brought this out of the huge corpus of Vedic literature? Shankaracharya. It's an important point. See, he doesn't yield an inch. So from Bhattas, there's a long distance from Bhatta to Vrittigara. So Vrittigara at least accepts Brahma Dhyanam, Brahma Upasana. Bhattas did not even accept that. And from Vrittigara to Shankara. So he said, of course, I had mentioned this Apasudadhikaranam, there are a few sections in the Brahma Sutra. And there are a few clarifications to be made here when I make this statement. Apasudadhikaranam is found in Jaimini also. It is in the Bhashyam also. The same thing is you find everywhere. Jaimini was much more unyielding than Shankara. So you can imagine. So again, he is referring to the existing contemporary conventions. He is quoting Manu and others, Ajnavalkya, Manu, Parasara and others. He is not making his own rules and regulations, he is quoting. So these are a few important things to understand. That's why the Dharma Dharadamyam and Adhikari Dharadamyam is a very important. Prasiddham cha arthitva samarthyadi krudam adhikari dharadamyam. So arthitvam means, you should be a Swargarthi, you should be a Swargakama. Then only you have a right to perform yajna or yaga, and then you should also have samarthya. So adhikaritvam and samarthyam, that is prasiddham, charthitva samarthyadi Krudam adhikari dharadamyam tathacha yagadi anushthayinameva vidya samadhi visheshat uttarena pathagamanam. So, people who have got arthitva and samarthya and could perform these higher rituals, for them, they can yaga and upasana, that is yaga plus upasana. That is a jnana karma samuchayam actually. For them, uttarena pathagamanam, that is this higher path, transcendental path, northern path is called. The other one is Kevarehi Ishtapurta Datta Sadhana Dhumadi Kramena Dakshina Badhagamanam. So that is the Ishtapurtam Dattam etc. The Ishtapurtam Dattam. So already I can explain this based on different commentaries. That will be interesting in just a minute. So Pitraloka Gamanam and Brahmaloka Gamanam, two paths are mentioned here. Chandogya Upanishad. Pitralogamanam Dhuma Margam, that Pitrayanam, Ishta Purtam Dattam etc. Brahmalogamanam Archiradi Margam, higher regions. So Agnihotram, Tapasatyam, Vedanam Chanuvalanam, Adityam Vaishudevam cha, Ishtam iti Abhidhiyate. So simple Sanskrit. Agnihotram, Tapasatyam, Vedanam Chanuvalanam, Adityam Vaishudevam cha, Ishtam iti Abhidhiyate. Vaisudeva is one of the samskaras. Kevala karmas, that is Ishta. That will help you to go to Dakshinayana. Then Vapi, Kupa, Tadagadi, Devadayadanani cha, Annapradana Arama, Purtam iti Abhidhiyate. So what is this? Vapi means big well, it's called Vapi. Kuvan is like big pond, Tadagadi, all these pools of water, bodies of water, bodies. Devadayana Anica means, and then Annapradana, Arama, so all these different kinds of charities, Purtamida Vidiyati, construction of temples, then creation of all these public utility things, it's called Purtam. They also go to Dakshinayana. And then Sharanagara Sandranam, Budhanam, Ahimsanam, Behil Vedi Dhanam, Dattam, Vidya Vidiri. They also go to this Dakshinayana. That is Ishta, Purta, Datta. All these will help you to go to Dakshinayana, etc. That's the idea behind it. So, and this also shows the, Adhikari Dharadamyam and Dharma Dharadamyam. Tatrapi Sukha Dharadamyam, Tasadhana Dharadamyam cha Shastrat. That you can, this Ananda Mimamsa you can read. Yava Sambad Mushitva Idi Asmat Gamyati Tata Manushadishu Naraga Sthavarandeshu Sukha Levascha Sodhana Lakshana Dharma Sadhya Eva Iti Gamyati Taradamena Vartamanaha. So everything depends upon, we are going to different levels. Tata Udagadeshu, Adhogadeshu, Cha Dehavatsu, Dukkha Dharadamyam. Tasyana Tathedoho Atharmasya Pratisheda Chodana Lakshanasya Tadanishtainam Cha Taradamyam Gamyati. So you can find all these different levels of fitness and spiritual progress or spiritual downfall. That also can happen, because those who do a lot of adharmas will go down the evolution, will be born as different sthavirantas, and those who do higher things will go to higher lokas. That's why it is mentioned here that Udagadeshu, Adhogadeshu, Dehavatsu, Sukadaradamyam. Just like there is Sukhadaradamya and Dukkadaradamya also is there. Dukkha Sukhadaradamya Darshanat. Taketuha Adharmasya Pradisheda Jodhana Lakshanasya Tadanushthainam cha Daradamyan Gamyati. Evam Avidyadi Doshavadam Dharma Dharmadaradamya Nimittam Sarirobadana Purvagam Sukhadaradamya Nimittam Samsarubam Sudis Mudiknyaya Prasiddham. All these show the imperfections or the problems or the defects of interpreting dharma or kriya or vaidya or rituals as the only implication of Vedic literature. If you interpret Vedas exclusively on the basis of all the yajnas and yagas, which again contain a lot of inequalities. Some people being able to do great things and achieve great things, and some people going down. So this happens, but this never happens in Brahma Jnanam. That's the idea behind. Tathaja Sudihi Nahavai Sasharirasya Sada Priya Priye Akamadi. I think we will discuss this later. Okay? 10 minutes question answer. If you are interested, I can see a few things, extra information from different commentaries that may be interesting. For example, there are certain mantras, certain rituals. In the Bhashyam you'll find Patnyaveksharam Ajyam Bhavati, Sri Shadavada Brahmana and others. So all these different yajnas and yagas which involve lot of complicated mantras. So all these show the possibility of some people going down and some people going up. That's Sukhadaradamyam, Dukkadaradamyam, Adhikaridaradamyam, Dharmadaradamyam. All these are part of this the culture or a tradition based on yajnas and yagas. Okay, now come to subject. Any doubt you can ask it out, whatever I discussed. I want to go a bit fast because I don't think I'll be able to complete the entire the Sutra. These next 5 days left. Okay, come.
Dharmadalottamyam we can understand, Maharaj. Even in Brahma Jnana also,
yeah.
Brahmavid, Varaha, Varishtaha, iti taradamyam.
Yeah, and that is irrelevant when it comes to that is Sabdavarokshawada. When you reach that experience, this doesn't happen. Actually, that analysis is not accepted in mainstream Vedanta. That is an analysis based on Srishti Drishtivada, Panchadeshi, Vedanta and others. That is true, different levels. But according to mainstream Vedanta, if you are fully established in sadhana, Chatushtaya Sambhakti, when you get Shabda Paroksha Anubhuti, then there is absolutely no distinction. This Brahmavidvariya and Varishta, all these they are not taken in main Brahma Sutra dialectics. Because that kind of interpretation was what prompted Prakashananda Saraswati to project this Drishti Srishtivada. That will they can dilute mainstream Advaita. It only means different levels of attaining sadhana adhushtaya sambhati. Brahmavid, Brahmavidvariya and Brahmavidvarishtan, they do not have the same level of perfection in sadhana sadhushtaya sambhati. That is the interpretation of Vedanta. If you read Yoga Vasishtha, if you read this Gaudavada Karika and all that, then you don't find these different levels of interpretation. It's clear to you. You don't find any of those things there. So in a way, it is not a subject of discussion at this level really. Because in the Mandvikaya, it always says, so it's stated there, when you cut a tree or a piece of wood, what you are doing is, when you make a distinction between two halves, suppose you cut a piece into two, what you are doing is, you are removing the connection between the two halves. And after that is done, that knife has no role in that. In the Karika Bhashya and other Ragasyavarti and all, there are elaborate statements about this. That is, Samakaleva. The moment you understand it is Rajju, then there are not different levels of recognition that it is Rajju. You don't find, some people still think it is Sarpa, some people little less conviction to Sarpa. Some people, Sarpa, still there, not much. No, once you bring light, it is Rajju once for all. So that is the essence of Shabda Aparokshavada. At the highest philosophical level, Shabda Aparoksha is accepted even by Srishti Drishtivadins also. The only point is, Srishti Drishtivadins accept creation, Ishvara, Srishti, and then Mahatattva, Ahankara, all these are accepted. Pancha Mahabhutas, Panchikarana, all these accepted. Vidyaranya and others. Vedanta, Paribhasha, and others. But these are insignificant from the Drishti Srishtivada. And Shabdaparoksha is actually linked to Drishti Srishtivada. Because once you recognize that it is Rajju, then you are 90% Rajju, 10% you think is Sarpa. No. Somebody tells you Tattwamasi. So as Vivekananda Prasthana will tell you. So when you cross the river, you know the story, I don't want to go details again. When a stranger comes and tells the person who failed to count himself, Tvam Dashamaha, then he doesn't do prasankyana, dhyana, abhyasa to find out whether I am really the 10th one. No. Samakale eva, that is the Bhashya statement. That very moment, I mean the moment you bring light, the Sarpa Bhranti goes away, Rajju Praditi comes, that is the same time. There is no split second difference. And Bhashya is very clear in Karika Bhashya. I myself done many times. It's a very important thing. It's clear to you? So Brahmadupari and Brahmarishtan is only our analysis. In actuality, that Taradamya is only Taradamya related to different levels of attaining sadhana, chatushtaya sampatti. Nothing else. Is that clear? Okay. In one doubt. It is a doubt which actually gives me a chance to explain. Because the word meaning of this Brahma Sutra, when you all of you have studied and so familiar, I don't have to explain everything. But the central philosophy, for example, this doubt you asked is very important. Okay? Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, if you bring Brahmadi, Variya, Varishta, etc., then this philosophy will collapse. That because, so again, there is the subtle point. People can always argue that Jnana Karma Samuchaya is correct. There is an element of truth in that view, not in itself, but the view is not entirely wrong. Why? Because when you are not fully established in sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, what happens is, you still have some doubt as to the experience. So at that time you have to remind yourself. For that you should do dhyana, abhyasa, prasankyana. Prasankyana is accepted even by Vachaspati, Bhamadikara. That is true. Actually, most of the Vividisha sannyasins are prasankyanavadins. Every day you read, you have to remind ourselves, that's true. So there is no doubt about it. We are also Advaitins. So what kind of Advaitins we are? We are doing prasankyana. Every Vividisha sannyasin is a prasankyanavadi, really speaking. Prasankyana is not wrong. But the fact is, pure Advaita goes beyond that. That's why I mentioned the Shamastamasi, the statement, Tattwamasi, the same thing. Then there is no scope for different levels of viewing and interpreting the spiritual status of a Jnani, Brahmavid, Variya and Varishthana, etc. That's okay, point. Okay. Because these minor descriptions of the rituals, again there are many, which may not be very significant from the other point of view. You have to understand this much. That is karma according to Bhatta and what he has to say about Brahman, which is asat. Pratyagara says, no, it is not asat, but it is only upasana, dhyana. So you can see a higher progress here. Okay? Okay, thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.